And I'm going to make sure we share my screen. Um, Beautiful. And we will begin right now. So thanks very much. My name is Tracy Pepe. I'm really glad that you are here. We will record this and send this out to people who have pre-registered, who may have gotten detained from previous meetings. So I'm really excited to be working with some new partners, and we will be moving into British Columbia and hopefully Alberta very shortly. But we are in Ontario, and we work with many long-term care homes. And so we have a lot of really great case studies, and we'll talk a bit about some of the results. And we will talk about how we use scent, but the focus of today's presentation is really scent therapy, the communication tools we've established, how do we accomplish what we do, and what are the benefits moving forward. And we specifically target retirement homes, long-term care homes, senior living, and that could be as well as drop-in programs, because we do work here with the Region of Peel, and we also work with a local hospital. We would deal with Baycrest as well. So the question is, what if scent could impact mental health, and if it could be that simple? And from a cost perspective, it only costs less than 6 cents for an application to improve mood, memory, and engagement. And this is what I am trying to present to the industry. I'm an innovator. I'm a perfumer by trade, and I focus on raw materials, specifically essential oils, but I deal with some synthetics all around the world. And I have been problem solving for some of the largest companies in the world. And I had an aha moment. And so smell is this wonderful palette that is in front of me. I wrote, here's Anna. Here we are. So we have Anna who has joined us. We have just started, Anna, and we are getting out our scent, our smelly sessions per se. And we're talking about olfaction. And so I deal with naturals. I deal with all kinds of scent. I like naturals, and I can get into why, but I use a lot of synthetics. I use a variety of different smells because olfaction is really the underlying secret to cognition. It's a direct link to the brain. It happens in less than a second. This is a fabulous, every time I smell it, I stop, because I sourced this in Newfoundland, St. Anthony's, where they grow berries everywhere. And for anybody who's from Newfoundland knows that they have these really unique berries. And there's just someone else coming in. And so with these really unique berries, we have this fantastic aroma. And this scent is part of a scent memory that I have when I was out there. However, we all have scent memories. We smell approximately 10,000 different smells on a daily basis. We have a threshold where we can smell things, and we have limitations to what we take in. Unlike a dog, who usually has a cue to observe their world through their sense of smell, ours is generally through sound and through sight. And so for smell, this is something that's new for many of us. So when you smell something, there's 3 things I want you to learn. The first one is if you smell through your nose with your mouth open, you will get more of a palate. And when you do what we call bunny sniffs or small sniffs, your brain will incorporate, and it's a slower process for you to identify smells. It's not necessarily stronger, weaker, good, or bad. You now start to hear things, and there's a vocabulary to scent. So we focus a lot on the vocabulary because that is something that's really unique. Now, smelling is usually overlooked. And number two is if you smell your dinner, smell your coffee, smell everything you put in your mouth, what you will start to do is expand your palate. If you do not use your sense of smell, it diminishes. This idea that when you get older, you lose your sense of smell is false. Some of the greatest perfumers in the world are in their 80s, and they have the highest acute sense of smell that I've ever met in my life because they smell on a daily basis regular raw materials, and it is like they are challenging their olfactive. It is the same thing, and it's like musicians who play and play music, and their hearing, it gets acute, and they can hear notes and they can hear sounds that we don't necessarily hear anymore. So the good news is whatever we're going to do, we're going to improve your sense of smell. We're going to improve some of the patients or the individuals you work with. The third thing is this idea that you smell coffee beans to clean the palate is a complete marketing myth that was created by Elizabeth Arden. It sounded good. It was great. It was an idea. You could put it in a store. If you ever get to sensory overload, the ideal is to leave the room or to smell linen, cotton, things that have a breathing component. Your nose immediately, in less than a second, will refilter. And so this is just a few highlights of olfaction. We get into much more. So, my mouse goes, hold on, sorry. There we go. Oh, there we go. Sorry, my mouse freezes and I always forget that. So I am a perfumer. My name is Tracy Pepe. Why do I focus on scent? Because for 30 years of my life, I worked with some of the biggest companies in the world. And my goal was to create custom fragrances traditionally to manipulate consumers to buy more, to spend more, to linger longer. Corporations have a lot of research. They did a lot of work from understanding how long it takes for you to go grocery shopping, how much more you're going to put into your cart. Loblaws company here in Canada was one of the most fascinating projects I got to work on. We did a scent research study with them for 6 months, observed baked goods, observed people putting scent in their space, how much you spent. And to this day, the new designs of a lot of the Loblaws brands are based on the work that we created. And now you see patisseries and coffee shops and European feels where you're touching and you're tasting and you're smelling and you're seeing things happening. That's all part of sensory development. And the industry that I'm from, specifically the hospitality as well, and we did a lot of work with architects and design, we know how much scent impacts the consumer and everyday people. During COVID, I am responsible for, or I was responsible for these two individuals in particular. This gentleman here is my son. He's on the spectrum. He now lives on his own. He's quite independent. But during that time when I was a perfumer, I took care of Adrian, obviously. And then this is my older sister, Linda. And Linda has now transitioned to a long-term care home. But at the time, I was one of her primary caregivers, and I also took care of her. Linda has schizophrenia. And utilizing scent as a tool was something that I did. I worked with my family. My family knows that we have scents everywhere. We smell everything first. It's just because that's the way I communicate. But I didn't know later that my son realized that his mother was weird, as he always tells me, because other mothers just don't smell things like you do, Mom. So I learned with Linda as a young child, the scent game was one of the key things that her and I could communicate with and enjoy our time together. where we would go into the kitchen and we would take a whole bunch of raw materials, sardines, chocolate, honey, peanut butter, mix it all up, put a blindfold on, and see how many we could figure out and determine what we were smelling. It was a revolting game, and sometimes because the loser had to kind of taste it, but it was something that was really interesting. And now that I look back, I realized that the olfactive aspect was something that I naturally gravitated towards. I later took my training in Germany. I worked in industry. And then when COVID-19 hit, obviously the world changed and there was an opportunity. But prior to that, I was doing my TED Talk in Dubai in front of the World Health Organization. And that was in October before COVID actually took over the world. And I was presenting how the nose knows and what scent does and about mental health. And at the time, I was shocked that one of the primary responses to COVID-19 was loss of sense of smell and taste. And the entire medical industry missed it. And this was something that was quite fascinating because in the perfumery and in the industry that I am traditionally from, we paid attention to this very closely because we knew the connection between ear, nose, and throat. We knew the connection between the cells and the olfactive tissue from the anatomy aspects to it, and how sense of smell impacts mental health. There has been studies that have been done for years that when you lose your sense of smell, your increase to depression goes up by 80%. And so our industry watched and we were paying attention to see how much the medical fields were going to start focusing on scent and taste. And some did, but not as much as we thought. And so I wrote a book called Why the Nose? And Why the Nose came out to basically teach people how to use plants, herbs. We were in lockdown, couldn't go to your grocery store, supply management issues. So I wrote the book that basically said, how do you smell with the smells that you have? And how do you work on your sense of smell if you've lost it? And if you've impacted your sense of taste? And how do you get it back? And I ended up going on Zoom talks and we ended up doing this work. And that's where my life fundamentally changed. And I created Smelling Pink. And Smelling Pink, focuses about olfaction. We focus on scent and utilizing scent. This is a blotter paper that we use in the fragrance industry. When you smell something, it enters the area of the nose where the cilia, which is here, which is at the top of the olfactive nerve, stimulates and sends messages to certain parts of the brain. Fascinating thing about olfaction is Dr. Luca Turin, a famous researcher, determined years and years ago with Linda Buck, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, that we don't actually smell through a molecule. And that's one of the reasons why scent sensitivities and allergies are a different conversation. But we actually don't smell through a molecule. We smell through vibration. And that is based on bees. And bee really took down the research path on how the brain interprets vibration, and it becomes about vibration. Is it a loud vibration? Is it a low vibration? Well, for those of you who understand music as a vibration, smell is almost very identical in its way of communicating to the brain. And this creates mystery. And when there's mystery, science often doesn't lean towards it. It often avoids it. But this is something that I have dedicated my entire career and my last 5 years with Smelling Pink focusing on, because I believe there is a path forward and some opportunities to help people with all various forms of mental health, specifically dementia and Alzheimer's and individuals with Parkinson's. There is an emotional communication that has always struck me when I worked with butterfly units or sensory communication. When I see this, that no one is talking about sensory. And this is one of the key components with the sense of smell. It triggers the limbic system. And because it impacts the limbic system, it is truly the only emotional communication as a tool out of the 5. Because taste does not trigger the same emotional connections within the limbic system. Music can sometimes, but it's not consistent, but scent does, and sight does not, and touch does not. And so this became part of watching through the lens of COVID, the unbelievable isolation that was occurring with our elder population, and knowing this could be a link. This could be something that we could work with individuals, family members, people who provide care already, a tool. And so every single day, we smell over 10,000 different scents, and we don't even know it. We don't even pay attention to it. And there are a lot of scent-free policies within the medical industry that need to be updated. I call them scent-friendly because there's a lot more research. And at the time when it was done, it was more of a HR component because individuals may be wearing perfume to work. We're past all that. In fact, the research is actually showing that by eliminating any scent in homes, specifically long-term care homes, you're creating a more dismal, more negative impact for residents, but also for workers. And so how do we get around this? This is something we do talk through, and we do help to upgrade this. Smell is based on a vibration. So there's no allergy, actually, allergen molecule in scent, in an actual aromatic chemical. Now, where there is allergies, and there is allergies, is when you see an endocrinologist who does a series of allergy testing, which is done directly to the skin, and you will know those allergens and they will create a reaction. The difference between a sensitivity, which is a very real experience, is the brain is actually warning you that something is causing you discomfort or pain, fear of flight. If you smell smoke, there's the fear that there is fire. And the sensitivities never get stronger. But allergies will. And eventually, a food allergy can kill some people. We've never had any injuries or illnesses documented ever in the world of someone supposedly having an allergic reaction to scent and dying. They know this. There's a big distinction. So understanding this, preventing sensitivity reactions is very important. Knowing the difference. There are certain chemicals. Natural versus synthetic is also a perception we have to understand, because not all naturals are good for you. I've always said that if you get, bitten by a rattlesnake, venom is natural and it can kill you. It's not that they're less potent by any means. It's just some of the naturals actually have far more chemicals in them than synthetics. It's just some synthetics haven't been properly tested or are known to be carcinogenic or have alcohols or solvents or things that are additions that are not good for the body, harm, or environment. So understanding this aspect of chemistry is very important. And this is we talk about this, and we talk about what we need to do to make sure that we're doing this correctly and we're meeting Health Canada safety guidelines. I always like to bring this up because as a perfumer, this was one of my jobs, creating a scent category to help you choose a detergent. Believe it or not, people do not buy detergents based on the fact of the product. They buy it by how it smells. And even a scent-free product has a certain scent that is created because these raw materials are what we call quat systems. Quat systems are basically fats and alcohols. You mix them together. That is how you get rid of odor, dirt, soil, different quat chemicals, and it gets a little technical, goes into grease and so forth. But these are the basic foundations back in olden time, is fat with an alcohol mixed together. Now, those smell terrible, and it would be inconceivable for a company to create a detergent to make your clothes smell worse. It would defeat the purpose. And so as perfumers, our goals are to create smells that either you want to cuddle, you want to feel fresh, you want the clean scent, you want a non-chemical smell. All of this is based on perception, and it's all based on exceptional amounts of research. And so this is somewhere I always had the aha moment of understanding when we start to create scent-free zones, we actually are starting to create environments where we're not getting the true benefits of how scent can be helpful. Right now, 78.4% of seniors who live in long-term care homes have poor to no sense of smell. And that's based on our data collection of over 650 individuals per se. And what we know is it impacts this alone, this issue, this problem impacts appetite, anxiety, sleep, and emotions. And what we do know is scent impacts appetite, anxiety, sleep, and emotions. And so the problems that they are facing, we actually can have a solution for them, even if it's temporarily. It's also something that can be built on with family, and it can be incorporated to be involved in sensorial work if you are dealing with nonverbal and you're using music, or with diet, with taste, with tactile. There's a variety of different things that we can do with it. And so the solution became, we created a web-based training program, or I did. I own the IP. We're 100% Canadian. It is a training program that I educate as much staff as I possibly can. We provide the tools for the staff, and it depends on your home. Some are rec therapy, some are in memory care, some are home care. We have home care provider. It all depends. There's a variety of different ways that we work with individuals. This individual over here, this gentleman, he was really fascinating to me, and he allowed me to take his pictures, and he never wanted to give those scent sticks away. It was his comfort. And he didn't normally participate. But when we were doing scent therapy and the rec therapist was working with him, he really engaged in this. And we work with naturals, we work with synthetics, but mainly what we do is we use one drop on a scent stick, completely paper, inexpensive, disposable. Depending on mobility of the hand, sometimes in group activities, you put a drop in a cotton ball and you put it in a cup. There's a variety of different ways. We do not use diffusers. We know some homes use diffusers, and so we will help them. But the goal is not to scent a space. That has never been the objective. This is not aromatherapy. There is no application to the skin. This is using science-based research on specific smells. There's about 20 that we know of that we really hone in on and we work with, because we know the chemistry behind them, and we know one of two things are happening to the brain. The brain is either stimulated and helps feeling euphoric, or the brain becomes calm and helps feeling relaxed. And there is really this stimulation occurring. We sometimes get memories where we have scent memory opportunities. We sometimes get individuals who know smells or resent or not. But this, because we're using a concentrated scent, one thing that does happen is we improve people's sense of smell. We have Parkinson's individuals who have no sense of smell, as you know, with the disease. Sometimes before they're actually diagnosed, years and years have gone by, and sense of smell is the first to diminish. Alzheimer's is showing this as well. We have people who have been in the home who are using scent therapy, who have had a greater sense of smell, and then for some reason they're not smelling. That is something that is to be really understood. And we call this a red flag, to maybe have a doctor test them, to pay attention to them. Everything we do is web-based, which makes my company accessible. And that's one thing I'm very pleased to participate with as many individuals all around the country. We provide a scent kit. And for some of you, this is what the scent kit looks like. We provide, each module has a printed materials. We sell this whole system. It's $5,400. We provide enough material for 20 individuals and as much staff as you want. We provide you the videotapes, the training, and we have tons of wonderful tools afterwards to continue the growth and the opportunity. Part of the work that we do is best practices, where we spend a lot of time teaching one-on-one, but we also show you recreational. And if you do scent therapy a minimum of 7 times, you start to see specific results in certain types of individuals, especially people who have a very low sense of smell to none. It's quite fun, actually. And we just finished helping 11 homes complete an Ontario intake process. And we provided them a very detailed report of the journey we've been working with them. That's something we help our clients, because we track, and we're not tracking any of these residents. We're tracking all the smells that they're smelling. That's the difference of the work that we do. And what I like to see is the comparisons. And when I start to see behavioral changes and modifications because of certain smells, I know the chemistry behind the scent. So that's giving me a warning. And so one thing that came up, which was really enlightening to us, and we need to do research on it, but research has a very complicated process, and we're getting more real time, is when you use lemon, which has limonene, and limonene is a stimulant, on individuals who have Alzheimer's, they sleep better. And that is something that was quite interesting, because the stimulation of the brain released serotonin, or is what I suspect, because I correlated this to some medications with individuals when you are hyperactivity with ADD and ADHD of using stimulants. And limonene does do this. And this was all part of our case study. And this was something that we came across, because everyone thinks lavender is the best tool. It's not. It can be, but it's not. And so it's really interesting for us to go through the case by case and to work in a way where we can provide the best tools possible. Right now, we are seeing some interesting, when we talk about isolation, 51% approximately feel anxiety. 36% of the individuals we work with are feeling sadness, and 31% are feeling lonely. So at least 1/3 of the base that we immediately start with, we're dealing with emotional issues, and 50% are already anxious. Within 15 minutes of doing a one-on-one scent therapy session, almost half felt happy. 44 started to feel calm, and 24% felt comforted, which is fascinating, because we know, back to my years in detergents and fabric softeners, scent creates comfort. And so how do we do that? That is part of the training and the learning that we do. And sleep is another issue. Sleep is something that comes up quite frequently, and we're learning more and more and more about sleep. But 90% felt relaxed, 72% comforted, and 63% calm. The difference is this was a specific intake session that was done by 5 homes, and 60% of the homes put a diffuser in the room because they could. It was a private room. and 30% did one-on-one scent therapy prior to bedtime as part of the ritual. And from there, they saw 36% of the individuals sleep longer and 18% woke less. Now, very preliminary results. We are expanding this and we are doing more and more work, and this is continually ongoing. But these are just simple areas that we see very impressive impact that has a trickle-down effect to all long-term care homes, because it helps to reduce when people are getting up, wandering, if they're sleeping better. It is helping individuals specifically when we're dealing with appetite stimulation. This is something where there was a report that came out of the Long-Term Care Association where there's a 30% increase in supplements. And this was really alarming to me, because one of the things that every presentation I go to on food and dietitian, they talk about food quality, they talk about preparation on the plate, they talk about how it's presented. No one's talking about, can anyone taste it? And that was a red flag for me, because the majority of people that I've come across, when your sense of smell is weakened, your sense of taste is weakened. You can't have one without the other. And I actually show by putting some jelly beans in the kit when we first start, where you put a jelly bean and you chew, and you actually, as an individual working with someone, you really start to sense how dull their sense of taste is, and why some of the number one complaints is, I can't taste my food, this food is terrible, it's this, it's that. Taste is a huge part of that. And so this was an intake session that was done specifically with Banwell Gardens, and there was 3 individuals in particular that were refusing to eat. And one in particular, the husband was so excited that he could do the program. And so the social worker taught the husband, he would come and have lunch with his wife every day, and they would do scent therapy prior to the food coming. Timing is very critical, because when you smell, you start to stimulate your digestive juices, you start to stimulate your brain response, and you start to stimulate the anatomy of the body prior to food. And a lot of times in long-term care homes, the food is prepared somewhere else, and then it's just presented to individuals. They're told it is a mealtime. This became a one-on-one opportunity, and she had a 76% increase with only one refusal, and she had 100% engagement. And they continue this program, and her diet is increasing, and she's eating, and it is something that the husband just felt relieved, because they had tried everything. And we are doing an in-depth evaluation. We are starting in September. I have 6 particular homes. We actually are working with a grant, and we are focusing on this particular problem to see what type of impact we can make. And it's that simple. It's complicated, but the scent, utilizing it, working with it, and empowering the family, you see the benefits and you see how this works. And it's not every smells, but there are certain scents we know that have an incredible impact on the perception of food, as well as the memories associated to food. So the results that we are seeing, there's a reawakening of the sense of smell. And that is really exciting, because residents with little to no olfactive response, after 7 sessions, we are starting to see a dormant stimulation of scent. We have 3 Parkinson's individuals, all 3 Parkinson's individuals, because the 3 key scents that have been studied consistently for Parkinson's is rosemary, eucalyptus, and peppermint. Those three are very strong with camphor components, and what camphor does is stimulates and oxygenates an area of the brain. We don't know why. I'm never going to explain to a researcher or a scientist why we are stimulating areas of the brain. But you can imagine if you haven't smelled and you are isolated within the Parkinson disease, and all of a sudden you're doing one-on-ones with an individual with a PSW and you can smell something, it's startling and it's rewarding and it's exciting and it's an opportunity as a tool of engagement. And this is something that we have seen, and there's quite a bit of research on this, but this is something where we know you can increase cognition and the sense of smell. Many Alzheimer's patients and dementia patients have lost their sense of smell, and so they're nonverbal, but we teach you vocabulary just like we did at the Loblaws research, where I never spoke to one customer. I wasn't allowed. The legal team said that they were off limits. And so we used to hide up in areas and document and videotape everybody's behavior until we saw a consistency. And let me tell you, this was long before AI. So I got really good at understanding certain behaviors and what we were looking for. Cognitive engagement, there's a support of memory recall, but the best part is storytelling. Smell always starts with, this reminds me when I was a little girl and I used to have a lemonade stand and we used to sell lemonade, and Shirley goes, really? Lemonade stands? I never did lemonade stands. I used to do bake sales. And why did you? And all of a sudden, 1 cent takes these people on a different discussion. That storytelling is the connection. We have a fantastic case that I'm hoping to get some footage of this, but coffee time was really boring. And people would come down and get coffee and they wouldn't talk to anybody. And so the home did pairing like you would with a sommelier and wine. And we took chocolate, vanilla, waffle, and cake scent, which are not naturals by any means, but they're like fantastic food extracts that we work with. And we put them in cups. And as people have got their coffee, they would smell and drink their coffee and change the taste of the coffee with their smell. And all of a sudden, this became an hour coffee session, which then stimulated the next program where they implemented exercise. And these are ways, because what I like to do, and my skill set is because I've worked in the hospitality industry, even though we worked with a brand like Hyatt Place, all across the world, they were different. And so we had to specialize to the geographics, to the destination, to the people. And we really, when we were creating custom scents for the hospitality industry, that a hotel in Arizona would be completely different than a hotel in Calgary. And what would be those defining differences? A lot of times it was in the scent, because that was the cheapest way that we could do a defining component while keeping the brand consistency the same. So this is a tool that I do with all the nursing homes and the retirement homes. Well, at the recreation part of the program, which is module 4, I have you share me your calendars. Let's see where we can implement this in group activities. This is a fun part. And one thing I'll tell you is you all have similar activities, you just call it different names. And so how can we liven up a bingo hall? There is an emotional regulation, and what we're noticing is a 65% reduction in overall anxiety and agitation. And one of the best things that I like to say is we are seeing a reduction in anxiety medication. This is something that was just finalized in a report that we did for 11 homes. We saw it particularly in a few homes that really targeted this. There's an 80% increased engagement in individuals where there's greater eye contact, conversation, interaction with staff and peers. We see natural circadian support when it comes to sleep and appetite, and reduced sundowning and restlessness. This is another aspect of it. Caroline gave me a fabulous referral. I always like to share this. and she started the program very hesitant, and she really struggled to increase exercise. And now, by implementing scent therapy strategically in certain areas, she now has sometimes 3 exercise classes a day. And she's shocked at some of the outcomes because people are just feeling more and more engaged. So I take her recommendation very to my heart. So these are some of the financial impacts that happens because corporations want to understand this. Yes, we do a lot of wonderful work, but $5,400, for example, we're seeing a 49 return on investment in 12 months. We have some people who have been in the program for almost 3 years. There's cognitive support, reduced agitation, increased social engagement, less medication use. These are things that no one likes to talk about, but in a world where our governments, especially the federal government, is now talking about cuts, cuts, cuts. If I can help in this area with your higher marketing or higher executives to understand the value proposition of what we're doing, where we're adding services and helping to reduce costs because we are doing things in a more smarter way, as well as a lot of people who use what we work with, because we're working with naturals, and the majority of the work that we do are naturals. And the opioid crisis is so predominant in the West, and I don't have to tell people who live out there, but by saying we're using scent and not another medication gives relief to the families. Now, in Ontario, there is funding available through a nursing envelope. I know this is very unique, and I'm working towards various different interprovincial crossing because I know every ministry does things differently. But I am located in Ontario, and so there are 2 areas under the Residents' Responsive Behavior and Supports Ontario, which comes through the nursing envelope, that our program meets criteria, so you get the full funding back. We work with the Alzheimer Society. I am a proud member of the Ontario Bee Association because I am very much, they're to my heart. And I also am a social procurement company. So we have incredible research that we like to share. And so I'm really excited that this year I have started working on a blog where I'm sharing my 35 years of knowledge, every contact I know, every LinkedIn, every video, every research paper. I am posting this on our website. As well as I have an olfactive group, which I started 20 years ago or 17 years ago when LinkedIn first started. And it's been around a long time, the organization. And it's really interesting because we have over 5,000 different researchers and perfumers who upload their papers. And so we get some really fantastic research, but I also get research feeds on a regular basis. Once a month, we send out a 4-page newsletter highlighting certain scents, highlighting what we've learned, highlighting best practices in care, and highlighting family interventions or engagement of what is happening. Obviously, we have an online store if anybody wants to purchase a kit. I buy directly. I've eliminated American suppliers. I do not use any American suppliers. Everything is from Europe specifically. We do buy some stuff from China because there's some oils that we get from China. Vetiver is a really great example. Some of the best vetiver comes in from the Chinese market. So I have established a rapport with the growers. And when this silliness started with Donald Trump, I immediately eliminated any citrus oils that we were buying from Florida and California, and we buy from Italy or into Portugal in different areas. So that has changed. So there's a consistency. My prices don't change because of a Donald Trump tariff, as well as we know the suppliers and we work with them very closely. So this is what scent therapy is about. This is my story. This is my journey. I really appreciate you participating in today's class. if you have any questions, I know one person is on here who can't see me or microphone, but if you have any questions, here's an opportunity to slap in the chat room and I will gladly help you. Next steps is if you're interested, send me an email. I'd be more than willing to set up a one-on-one meeting if there's something I can do to help your home. If you are interested in learning more without necessarily engaging within my program, which I understand, I have a YouTube channel which I have been posting for quite a while. I have over 100 or so videos. What do you do with essential oils now that you bought them? How do you add them to detergents? How do you add them to soap? There's quite a bit. I did this during COVID. I've been expanding it as we grow. Everything I focus on is really about scent and how to make you feel better, how to utilize this as a tool. One of the benefits I will share with you as individuals who are workers who get to do this one-on-one, they get to smell these great scents and they themselves feel the rewards as well. I want to say thank you very much for giving me 45 minutes of your time. I will put this in a video link. I will follow it up and send it to you. If you have any questions at all, please reach out. Excited to see how the program benefits our residents. Looking forward to upcoming sessions. Yes, we have an individual who we are working with Park Place. I'm very excited to be working with Park Place. And you are more than welcome, Kendra. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. And I want everyone to say have a great day. Enjoy. Bye.